Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Google Hummingbird update and a number of the very dramatic changes that have happened to the Google search results page over the last couple of years. The face of Google search engine results pages, or SERPs, has changed quite a bit, and uh, and we can really start to see this culminate with this graphic here. Google released this in celebration of their 15-year anniversary. Kind of conveys a number of the different changes that happened to Google search. So it's kind of interesting here. The Google Hummingbird update has been really interesting. The nickname comes from being very precise and fast, and Google kind of came out and said that this update, this algorithm update, was the culmination of 15 years of work. Now, the last time an update has been this dramatic was Google Caffeine. The way to think about this, right, is that when Google has um, major algorithm updates, they're generally just pieces of the equation. Caffeine and now Hummingbird are exceptions. So if you think about Panda update or the Penguin update, they're kind of small changes to parts of the algorithm, whereas Caffeine and Hummingbird are entire reconfigurations of it. If you think about a car engine, Panda or Penguin might be one part of the engine, whereas Caffeine and Hummingbird are replacing the engine outright. So the best way to think about the Google Hummingbird update is that it now allows Google to quickly parse through full questions rather than just parse through the words that are in a query. So what this allows Google to do is it allows Google to rank answers to questions rather than rank websites that contain those answers. So what you see a lot more of is Google delivering the answer to the user rather than just delivering a list of websites that might contain that answer. One of the biggest pieces of this is conversational search. This is really being aided pretty heavily by the Hummingbird update, and it's allowing Google to get better at understanding the meaning behind different words. Google's taking into consideration the meaning of each word and not just the word itself. So a lot of this relies on what Google has named the knowledge graph. Let's take a quick look at that.
Wouldn't it be amazing if Google could understand that the words that you use when you're doing a search, well, they aren't just words. They refer to real things in the world. That a building is a building, and an animal is an animal, and that they're not just random strings of characters. If we can understand that those words are talking about those real-world things, then we could do a better job of getting you just the content that you want off the web.
The way Google is trying to build information about real-world connections is by building a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph is about collecting information about objects in the real world. The object could be a person, could be a book, could be a movie, and many other types of things. For example, for a famous person, we collect relevant data about them, such as their date of birth or how tall they are. We can also connect that person to closely related objects in the knowledge graph.
Let's say you're interested in Renaissance painters, or how about how many women have won the Nobel Prize? By understanding the relationships between things, be it between painters in the Renaissance or women in the Nobel Prize, Google can do a better job of understanding what it is exactly you're searching for.
One of the first features we are going to introduce, which applies the knowledge graph, is a panel next to the web results.
When you have a question to answer, others may have come to Google already to search for the same thing. Google can jumpstart your research process by combining the information that others found useful with the information in the knowledge graph.
All of the collective human wisdom that comes through our search engine, what people are searching for, tells us what are the interesting things to put in our database.
Take Leonardo da Vinci. Let's say you wanted to learn about the most important Renaissance painters. You might search for Leonardo da Vinci because he's the only Renaissance painter you know about. Now, you'll see information right in the search results that helps you explore the broader topic of Renaissance painters. You'll see some of the most famous paintings from that era, like the Mona Lisa, and discover other painters of that time, like Michelangelo and Raphael.
We're in the early phases of moving from being an information engine to becoming a knowledge engine, and these enhancements are one step in that direction.
As we grow the knowledge graph and make it larger and richer, we're really excited at the opportunity we have to understand more of the user's queries, to understand more about the information that's out there on the web, and intelligently connect the two to each other.
All right, so now that we've learned a little bit more about the knowledge graph, let's take a look at entities, entity search, and structured data. So going forward, this is really the backbone of the Hummingbird update. An entity search is a more accurate method for bots to really understand searcher intent. This is how Google is mapping additional verified sources to answer a search query. And so the way that we tell Google what an entity is and aid in the entity search, we do it with structured data. Now, the kind of higher level concept to understand is that prior to schema in the Hummingbird update and structured data, what we really had with earlier versions of search engines was unstructured data. And that was really just data that's not been organized based on any standard, right? So without structured data, search engines can really only identify patterns or keywords or sometimes synonyms of those keywords, but they have a really difficult time determining meaning. With structured data, what we have is a classification of data by labeling it based on these predetermined standards. Now, right now it's schema.org. It could change, but that's kind of what we're going with for the time being. This allows us to provide extremely specific information to search engines, and it lets them consume, classify, and link together that data. It's really reliable, the structured data, because it can be cross-verified, and when multiple structured data is listed by verified, trustworthy sources, it can be relied upon much more easily. So the better way to think about this is, in the past, Google used to be the best at simply indexing data, right? Finding it, putting it together, and kind of linking it together through unstructured ways. But now they're really focusing on understanding that data. And that's really the higher level concept to understand as we transition into the Hummingbird era. Now I wanted to kind of take a look at what some of the structured data looks like out in the wild. So I've pulled up a couple of different search results page already, and I just wanted to show you some examples. So the first one is what's called a local carousel. So this here is a query for Coffee San Francisco, and we see that Google has pulled up a number of different local coffee shops because of structured data in this search result. Next one is a little more common. It's kind of known in the SEO world as a local 7-pack. So we have a query for Bed and Breakfast San Francisco, and sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's in the middle, but we have 7 brick and mortar locations that are all here based on the markup that Google has derived from these properties. Cool, so that's the local carousel and the local 7-pack. Next is the near local results. So we have a query here for Best Buy Oakland, but Google has determined that there's 2 others nearby and shows us results for Best Buy near Oakland based on structured data that it has on these results. Some other newer interesting ones, the list carousel. So the query here, Red Hot Chili Pepper songs. Because of schema markup and structured data, Google knows a number of Red Hot Chili Pepper songs. I can check these out, right? I can click one, and it'll actually take me to a YouTube video with that song. Okay, and so next we have what's being called the answer box. So the query is quesadilla calories, and Google knows, again, because of structured data, that there's 528 calories in a quesadilla. There's some other markup stuff here. We'll talk about that in a little bit later, but this is really the answer box. And this is going to be incredibly important going forward for mobile search. If you think about some of the limiting factors in a mobile query, mobile search is generally slower. People want answers pretty quickly. This is going to be a real game changer, the answer box. If you think about, showing the user an answer within the search results so they don't have to click through to the first web page. Next is what's much more traditionally known as kind of the knowledge graph or the knowledge entity. The query is Thomas Jefferson. And Google is showing us on the right-hand side as much information as it reasonably can about Thomas Jefferson. There's a lot of different things to click through, related entities down here. But this is kind of what comes to mind immediately when people say the knowledge graph. In addition to this, there's also kind of the brand knowledge graph. A lot of this seems to rely on Google+, so if you're a brand or a company and you have a Google+ page, that data comes up here. There's some other interesting ones here for teams. They have rosters based on the markup, and they also have the game schedule. This is unrelated to a brand knowledge graph, but this is all structured data as well. Next is the alternatives box. So you see here we have the local carousel, which we talked about before. We have the map, right? But if Google doesn't necessarily understand what you're talking about, they'll give you options to change it. So we typed in Thai, right? It knows my IP address is in San Francisco, and so it's showing me Thai restaurants, which is reasonable, but maybe that's not what I'm looking for. So additional options are the Thai language, Thailand, Thai food, or Thai Airways. So that's kind of an alternatives box that lets Google try to better understand what it is you're looking for. Next is the image block. So a lot of the times you need the word images or photos in the query to do this. The query here is Golden Gate Bridge images, and we have some really nice images right in the forefront of the search result page. This is really indicative of the fact that Google is honestly trying to answer the user's question in the best way possible. So if the query contains the word photos or images, isn't it reasonable that the search results should have images right at the top and for all to see? So this to me is Google just getting much better at understanding where the user is trying to end up. Next is video results. This has been pretty common for a while now, but if you mark up video with schema, you can get little snippets of the video thumbnail in the search result page. The query here is how to tie a tie. Next is news results. So the query here is Kanye West, and we have a number of news results that happened recently that contain information about Kanye West. So there's more knowledge graph information here, but I want to focus mostly on news results in the SERP here for the time being. And last is authorship markup. So the query is SEO checklist. And you see here, because I have authorship markup on my site, my authorship profile, which is in Google+, shows up in the search results. So just a couple examples of not only schema markup and structured data, but really the changing face of search results in general. Okay, so one of the other things that Google emphasized with the Hummingbird update was conversational search and how Google is getting incredibly good tying in both voice search and its understanding of entities, structured data, and schema markup. So let's try a few. Burrito.
According to Wikipedia, a burrito, taco de harina, is a type of Mexican-American food.
Pizza.
According to Wikipedia, pizza is an oven-baked, flat, round bread typically topped with a tomato sauce, cheese, and various toppings.
Pizza versus burrito.
Here's a comparison of pizza and burrito.
How many calories in pizza?
285 calories in one slice.
Pizza restaurant, San Francisco. North Beach Pizza reviews. North Beach Pizza address.
North Beach Pizza is at 1462 Grant Avenue, San Francisco.
North Beach Pizza phone number.
The phone number for North Beach Pizza is 415-433-2444.
What time does North Beach Pizza close?
North Beach Pizza is open until 1 a.m. on Thursday.
Okay, so one of the other big pieces of the Hummingbird update in conversational search is that it really is taking us into the next level of search understanding. When humans have conversations, we often take a lot of shortcuts with pronouns and other short-term references that are very easy to understand for us, but never really happen in the eyes of a search engine. Search engines generally don't connect the previous query or question to the one that's coming up. Hummingbird and conversational search is really changing this. So let's take a look at this very profound difference. San Francisco 49ers.
The 49ers beat the Titans 31-17. They are playing the Jaguars on Sunday at 10 a.m.
Who is the quarterback? San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks.
Colin Kaepernick, Colt McCoy, and others are quarterbacks for the San Francisco 49ers.
How old is Colin Kaepernick?
Colin Kaepernick is 25 years old.
How tall is he?
He is 6 feet 4 inches tall.
How much does he weigh?
He weighs 230 pounds.
What's his 40-yard dash time?
Colin Kaepernick runs the 40-yard dash in 4.53 seconds.
What's his salary?
$740,844 United States dollars 2013.
Where's he from?
Colin Kaepernick was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Is it going to rain tomorrow in Milwaukee?
No, rain is not expected tomorrow in Milwaukee. The forecast is 45 degrees and partly cloudy.
Show me flights to Milwaukee.
Here is information for flights from San Francisco to Milwaukee.
So you can see here, Google is really taking search to the next level. Schema, structured data, conversational search, the Google Hummingbird algorithm update. It's going to be really interesting to watch and see where search goes in the future.